This is the Conscious Planet Network with your host, myself, Guyana Sophia. In these episodes, we'll be diving into inspirational stories of change, new technologies, and people really making a difference. There is just so much going on the planet right now that is helping to change humanity, our planet, and the future, and we need to know about it. So be sure to subscribe to the show so as not to miss any episodes. The Conscious Planet Network is an exploration of the evolution that is already in progress, one that you and I are a part of, that's happening on an individual and global level. There are so many people right now who are contributing to changing the tides of our future. Are you ready to be inspired? Hello and welcome back. So happy you've made it. Well, I have a special guest for you today, Ken of Ken and Zen, and we're going to be talking to him in a little bit, and we'll be talking about how he perceives our future to be love-based and how to move into changes, how to move into that love-based future. We'll also be talking about personal healing and how that applies with expanding ourselves in new ways, and how we can kind of look, how we can start to perceive the areas where we can really use that healing to find out the freedom we want in our lives. So today I'd love to chat with you about knowing the difference between intuition and mental patterns. We say, for instance, we've got to the point where we're following our intuitions. We're like, doing the silly things. We're, it's like we're turning left instead of right. We're following our guidance. We're talking to the people who, it may feel uncomfortable to talk to, but we're feeling really guided to talk to them. Or, it's just like moving out of our safe space and challenging how we are in life in order to live a more aligned life with our intuition. Now, these experiences of stepping in and living our intuition, living by our intuition, can really start to connect us in new ways, where we will end up talking with people who we get information that we have been actually looking for that morning or that day. And so I want to take it a step further. I want to take it a step further with you and recognize that sometimes we can have mental patterns in our heads that they're actually blocking our intuition. So I'm going to give you an example. So the other day I was sitting at home and my mom was there and she was like, "Oh, I'm currently looking for a new place to live." And she was like, I'd looked online and I found this place, and she was saying like, "Oh, we should go check it out. Why don't you email them?" And there was a bias I had about the person who had the house, and I had subscribed to this bias. I thought, oh, well, this person's like that. I don't think they'd make great landlords, yada, yada, yada. But I had met them like years and years and years ago, and I wasn't up to speed with who they are. And this was a moment where I was not aligned with my intuition. But my mom, because she had like this force behind her and she was really excited and really wanted to look at a new place with me, I decided to feel like, even though this felt like intuition, it felt like it was guidance, I decided to sidestep it and be like, okay, well, I'm going to, go with the flow of this moment because my mom's so energized with this, and see what happens. So we ended up going, and the guy was like super nice, and he was like totally not the person who I had remembered. And he was young, he was dynamic, and it was like the land was like super communal, and it was like really, really cute in lots of areas, lots of ways, and it was huge. And I was just like, wow, I I almost missed this. Now, I didn't end up taking the place, but it really highlighted to me that I had a personal bias, that it was left unchecked and I didn't even realize it. So I just wanted to bring this up because we can do this sometimes, and we can think that it's our intuition when we are believing these things. And so and sometimes it's really hard to recognize what our mental patterns are, like when something comes up as a belief compared to when it comes in as intuition. In order to really crystallize this idea, I want to give you one more example. There's a woman I know who loves the idea of going out, but she stays home all the time. And she is wanting to meet somebody. She's wanting to be a part, have a partner. And part of that is actually making yourself available to being, in places where, being out there in the world. And she makes up all sorts of excuses, like I can't go out because my cats need me. Bless the cats. I love the cat kingdom, okay? Don't get me wrong. But sometimes we can make up excuses, not to be going and doing things, especially if we're actually feeling like change is on afoot. We're on the brink of change. We may be holding ourselves back. And so this woman's come to me and talked to me about, sometimes she's felt like, she really wanted to go to certain things, but then she's held herself back. I talked with her, and finally she came to realizing that she's been holding herself back from actually going out. Sometimes it was true and genuine self-care that she didn't go out, out of her house, and she was looking after herself. She was really tired, and, she really wanted to go to something, but she was really tired. And so that's totally understandable. And in fact, I fully support the self-care. But if self-care is laced with a fear of change or a fear of things shifting, we just need to become aware of these things. And so it's through becoming aware of our own personal patterns that we can start to realize them and start to, challenge them a little bit, because these are things that are keeping us from a clear, direct route for our desires and our manifestations to occur in our lives. So the more we can start to become conscious of our unconscious patterns, then we can start to take back the steering wheel of our lives. And I'm not saying this to be down on anybody. I'm saying this because this is actually, when we become clear of what these patterns are, we can actually find way more freedom. And part of learning about these patterns is learning how to release them, and in a way where it's like it doesn't take much effort, and it's done with love. It doesn't take years of therapy for these things. And so this is what I'm going to talk to Ken about here today, so that we can, dive into different areas with you about how you can start releasing these patterns. All right, so without further ado, here's Ken of Ken and Zen. Hello, everybody. I'm here with Ken Berentzen of Ken and Zen.
Hey.
Hey, Ken.
Hey.
So, Ken is a filmmaker and also a marketer, and he helps people rise and create change in the world. And I've known Ken for a while now, and he's very funny, and he likes to be ridiculous. So I thought I'd have him on the show.
So is this going to be a ridiculous show?
I don't know. Is it, Ken?
It might be. Two ridiculous people in one room. Right. That can be pretty crazy.
I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like we need a bell.
A bell?
Yeah, something to ring.
If it gets too crazy, or like to calm our...
No, just to like...
to calm us down, or...
No. Probably call in the fairies or something. or call in higher consciousness. So I thought we'd explore the ideas of our future and how first of all, how you see the future and how like outside of ourselves, and also how you see us stepping into the future, like choosing the future that we want, in whichever way that you are most aligned with. Go, Ken.
Yeah, I think this is something that we've been working on for a number of years. I mean, shedding old skins and moving into new ways. But I see the future really bright because it's a very love-based future. Like we're going into getting into our passions. We're shedding all the old ways of doing things, and that's amazing.
I love that.
That's what we're into.
Love-based.
Yeah, I mean, the heart.
Nice.
Like, what does the heart want?
Yeah.
What do the heart wants to like? Do you want to just sit and relax? And that's probably the start, right? Because we've been stressing a lot, right? And then after you relax, suddenly something emerges, and that's the heart kind of going, okay, now we're relaxed enough, let's go.
That's cool. Yeah. I should also say that Ken kind of moves in circles of like channelers and what else, spiritual leaders.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel my desires is like anything that is, and I don't know. I mean, it started really for me with me wondering, because I've been working with computers for a long time, and I've been working with in banks and insurance companies and all the old systems.
Yeah.
And at one point, I think I was sitting in India for a large bank in India. I think the Bank of India or something.
Wow.
And we were talking about
heavy.
Yeah, heavy stuff.
Heavy.
But it's still India, so it is a bit light,
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's a bit. They laugh about
heavy
a lot of stuff.
light.
But and then I just remember we were talking about like, okay, marketing and how to send out SMSs to people and stuff, and then we were talking about permission and stuff. Do you have any permission? Like, when can you contact people and stuff? And then there was...
You mean via the bank? Like
No, like marketing. Like, okay, how can they communicate with their customers?
Oh, okay.
Because it was about getting more customers and blah, 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 all that stuff.
On board, yeah.
Yeah. And then what happened was that this guy just looked at us and laughed. I mean, they can't opt out. Like, they can't stop it unless they change numbers.
What can't they stop?
Well, the SMSs and the marketing and like get more loan kind of thing, How,
it's like so it's like a crazy animal that's gone wild.
Yeah. and it's those kind of things that I'm like, I'm actually part of the problem.
Oh.
This was many years ago. And that started my like, okay, I don't want this.
What exactly was the problem?
Well, I just feel like it's you just take advantage of people, and you just, okay, I'm just gonna take advantage of you, and I want money.
So it's like manipulating them, and
anything.
Yeah,
it looks nice on paper, and it's like marketed very nice, but it's just,
it's creepy.
It's not. I mean, you can feel it. Like if you're a bit conscious, you can like look at a commercial, and you can see the smile on their face that they want to trick you into something. Like, you can just feel the energy of who created it.
Yeah.
You can feel that.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, like, we're all awakening to that, to sensing those things, first of all, and to doing something about it. And everyone is.
I like that a lot about sensing, because I know that this leap that we're taking in consciousness and in our bodies, there's an evolutionary leap that we're taking right now, apparently, and it's being talked about a lot in the spiritual communities. So as human beings, we're becoming far more sensitive than we used to be. So even our nervous system is actually becoming a lot more sensitive. So we're able to feel, what's happening energetically, as well as like what you're talking about, Ken, which is like more like really being able to feel into images and be able to decode them a bit better.
Yeah. And you determine that by how you feel. And I think this is why Salt Spring is so good, because there is not so much commercial around.
Mm-hmm. Lots of people opt out of watching TV here. Like,
Yeah,
it seems that way at least.
yeah. I've opted out watching TV maybe 6 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like a continuous process of feeling better, and then watching something that made me feel worse, and I was like, why do I do it? Like, it's almost like I went into a movie really happy, excited about a movie, and then I dipped far down, like they took me way down, and then I came almost up to the same level. I was almost more lower in vibe after the movie. So
Right.
like,
It's like, why?
Yeah,
why do I do that to myself?
exactly. And it's those kind of things, like once you start to become more and more sensitive, you just make different choices.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with that. Like, and it's also bringing consciousness to that these things do affect us, and how do they affect us, and even questioning those things, because we can go into these movies and then watch them, and then come out and not realize that it, like, what type of effect it's had on us. We're just reacting to it.
Yeah.
So it's like bringing a level of consciousness to the equation and being like, so how do I feel, and why am I feeling this way? You know, are these my feelings, or is this something that's being generated from this film?
Yeah.
Like, there's lots of things I won't watch. There's lots of like, violence is definitely out now. Like, I have no reason for it. There's no reason for it. It's the old paradigm, keeping us separate, keeping it black and white as against them, rather than inclusivity.
Yeah.
So,
And what many leaders are also talking about, one of the spiritual leaders and channelers and things, is about everything in our consciousness is getting, I mean, you know, the mirror, right?
tell us about it.
Yeah, the mirror of basically this universe. Like, whatever you send out, you get back. And if you think about it, when you're watching a movie, the movie goes into your brain. I mean, you're basically getting programmed, and then you're out picturing that somehow in the world. So
what is out picturing? What does that
out picturing means literally, for example, like, let's say that we're watching a war movie about I don't know, the World War or something, which is like, in the normal world, it's like, okay, yeah, we're getting more knowledge about it, right? But what's actually happening metaphysically is that you're putting that into your being again. This happened many years ago, and then you're doing it again.
It's already in our cell memory from our parents and grandparents and all that.
Yeah, but you're remembering it again. You're re-aliving it again by this movie, and then you're creating it again somewhere in the world. It doesn't need to be in your neighborhood, but somewhere. Maybe you see it on the news.
I see what you're saying.
Right?
So basically, our thoughts create reality, and so what we put our attention on grows. So when we bring these images in, then we're actually we're enlivening them back into the world. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And this is also goes to, I mean, it doesn't need to be violence. Like, it can just be like, how does men and women relate to each other? Like love movies. And this is like, it's not seen as bad or anything, right? Because it's the way we've been trained, but it's kind of making this like, I just need to get the one person for me, for example. And that's well and nice, but what happens when you get that? Then the movie ends. No one knows what happens after that.
Well, I think what you're bringing up, I really love this, and it's like a shift in paradigm. So a shift in how things have been to how things are actually authentically now. How we relate to ourselves and how we relate to the world. And so I'd love to go back to that reflective nature of reality that you were just talking about in terms of our evolution. Any comments, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, this is what is governing us every day. And if we're in an environment where, you know, it's just the old, you know, I just call it the old, but it's like a way of being, which is, I'm listening to the outside world. Like, I'm listening to my parents, I'm listening to my friends because I want to be accepted. If you do that, then you're creating more of that, because it's almost like you don't have your own, it's almost like you're squashing down your own feelings, right? That's the old, right?
Yeah. How do you have any advice for people about like how to get in touch with their feelings? So that they can start to really bring understand what they are feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just can tell you a little bit of what I've been through right now, which is very, I mean, I'm kind of going back and forth between the old and the new. So UK, to me, United Kingdom, England in Europe, is the old to me.
Right. He's vacationing here on Salt
I'm
Spring.
vacationing here. Yeah.
He's coming from the old. Okay, gotcha.
So I've been here for the last 5 years, coming back because it really nourishes me.
Right. Back on the island.
Yeah. And to me, because I'm a Pisces, the environment is very important to me. So obviously your type there's going to be differences, but I would say get in touch with your body and your feelings is so key. And I think what I was doing almost unconsciously just to survive was that I was becoming like the people around me in the UK. So I disassociated from myself, my feelings again.
Right.
And I'm not normally doing that, right? But just because I was in that environment and there was not so many people reminding me to go in and,
Right.
So, and that was very tough. Coming here, I could feel myself. It was almost like I couldn't recognize myself.
You could recognize,
or you couldn't. The first couple of days in Salt Spring,
when you
right
came
now.
Back here.
Yeah,
right. I remember that we ran into each other.
Yeah,
didn't we? You're like, oh.
Yeah. And I had to just, and that's why I came to Thailand alone without my partner, because I had to just be here, be inside of myself.
It's a pilgrimage.
Pretty much. And I think it's necessary. But it's, you have to listen to yourself. And if you don't know what yourself is, then I would suggest meditation. I would suggest nature, absolute nature. Because nature has a vibe, has a frequency. The city has a frequency. And everywhere you go, you're going to be affected by your surroundings. It's almost like a flower, right? What kind of soil is the flower planted on? If it's a good soil, it will grow. If it's a little bit rotten, it can grow, but it might look a bit, So it's kind of the same analogy, I think, for people too. Like there is this environment.
I love that. I love that you're coming at it from a outside perspective, like plant yourself in a position for, the most possible success. Yeah. There's a saying from the Vedas, which is be awake, be aware, and always be in the company of the wise. Yeah. And so for me personally, I ended up on Salt Spring about 9 years ago now, the end of August, which is amazing. Wow. After being here for a certain amount of time, I started to unwind and just keep unwinding. And it was like this whole process of coming back to my authenticity of what do I really want to do? Before that, I used to work in I used to help companies actually raise on their websites with SEO, so search engine optimization. And it was super computer geeky. And I did that for another couple of years when I was here. And then I started to come into oh my gosh, I need to be off the grid living. I need to be away from the computer. I need to hone into my shamanic nature. And then all of this.
So why did it start? That's something you just saying now, but where did it came from? Were you unhappy somehow? What was triggering that?
Yeah. Well, I came from the city, from Vancouver, because I physically was unwell. I had some back issues, and I just felt like it was almost like this buzz was happening in the city, this energetic buzz. I couldn't hear myself properly. Right. And a part of me is was it the cell phone towers? Was it, because they increased the frequencies that were going on there. It was just really hard for me to be in there. And I've heard of people like this, who are oversensitive. And I just never really, I kind of thought, oh, well, they're just being sensitive, or whatever. But after experiencing this, I realized that holy ship, actually, it's a real thing. And it was really challenging for me to meditate, to really drop into my deeper center. Even though before the Olympics happened in Vancouver, I actually didn't really have that problem. But after the Olympics, it seemed like there were more people, there were more everything. And So when I came to Salt Spring, I came and I ended up staying. I was coming for vacation. I ended up staying because the community was so sweet, and it was nature based, and yeah, like that. So for me, yeah, and you know, I've heard people like come to this island and they totally don't resonate, and they're like bouncing off the island. So like the way that I see it is that we have a, in regards to planting ourselves places, like we have a energy frequency, a natural energy frequency, and that it resonates with certain areas that were, and these others, like areas outside of us, can be like medicine. And so when we feel really, really good in an area, whether it just be for, you know, maybe a vacation, maybe it's meant for a vacation and it's meant to expand your mind, you know, expand your spiritual experience, whatever is there, even your body, you know, maybe there's a lot of physical activity. So once we have, you know, we have these areas, and so we have access to so many sacred sites even on the planet. So it's just looking to what we're drawn to. It's like listening to, you know, our instinctual self, because I know, you know, there's some people who live in places that they really don't resonate with. You know, they surround themselves with people that they don't resonate with. Maybe new things are coming up inside of them, new energies, more new curiosities that aren't being held, like what you were talking about, with the people around them. And so what do people do about that?
Well, I think I just, there's a few thoughts that came to me while you were saying this, and I think it's so important to not make the old world bad. I need to escape. It's, you know, because that's creating, that's creating really a distance, and like a kind of a love-hate is us against them kind of thing. And I don't like that. I feel a little bit like it's the old world. The old world needs love. That's really what it is. Like, that's why it's so crazy.
But sometimes we can't actually evolve and do the work that we need to within that old structure.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I believe in the natural order of things once we get into our true essence. And when we actually can hear that, and some of us need to go in nature and need to be on places like Salt Spring to kind of get in touch with that. And then they can go and spread it and get clarity, you know, like get clarity on Salt Spring and go out and spread it. I mean, but everyone is going to be inspired in beautiful ways, because the divine is like, we're here for a specific purpose for us, I believe.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's really tuning in. I believe it's tuning into, you know, what is real for ourselves, right? It's like, you know, Salt Spring is perfect for me and you, and but it may, you know, there may be other places that are perfect for other people, and so it's you know, it's that place where you long to go, basically. It's the place where you're like, oh, I kind of feel like, you know, I've been there, or you know, someone said this about this and it just sounds really, really good, and I want to go check it out. Go check it out.
Yeah, go check it out.
It's about believing in ourselves.
Yeah, it's just so important to get into our hearts. I mean, and if you don't know, sometimes this is also a bit important. Sometimes when we're in the city and we're raised by our parents and we're watching these movies and we have friends around us, and we think our purpose is X, but it's just based on parents and friends and what we do to actually get
society support.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's hard to sometimes know. Like, sometimes you just think, oh, but I want to be an architect. But I want to. It's true. And sometimes it's just layers upon layers of belief. But of course, I mean, sometimes it is true. So like, it shouldn't be, you know, like, it's just, and the only person that can actually determine that is you. Is there joy running through your body? Then you're doing something good. If there's anything else than joy and happiness running through your body, then something is off with whatever you're looking at. And it's usually the determination of what you're focusing on.
Yeah, it's the following our bliss. And the reason why that is such a big thing, you know, it's not just, you know, for selfish reasons that our society can, you know, kind of be like, oh, but you're looking after yourself only. But actually, where our bliss is where our genius is. Yeah. And so it's like, the more that we can really tune into and hone into that bliss, the more that we can bring whatever gifts that we actually innately have into this world.
That's why you're so happy.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're in line, right?
I feel so in line.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why
to see.
you're so happy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like, I think also because I really, probably like you, actually I know like you, is tuning into the divine comedy of things.
Yeah.
It's like being able to like see the bigger joke of what's happening.
Yeah. It's true, but sometimes we have belief that kind of keeps us getting sucked a little bit back in again, and then you go, oh, fuck, I have to do some work. Or ship, or what is that? No.
Focaccia.
Focaccia. Yeah.
Oh, focaccia. That's right. But that is evolution. That is our evolution. Is like, like you were saying earlier, you're in between the old world and the new world, right? So it's like, that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
We're pioneers of consciousness. We are, those of us who are stepping into our lights, which is a large amount of people. They're, believing in themselves. And if you're listening, you are one of them. If you're still, listening to our conversation, I'm betting that you are one of them.
Yeah.
And so it's finding our own alignment. And what we were just talking about, Ken.
Well,
I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, that's okay. I just also had something I wanted to say, and that was this idea of like, and it comes to your life's purpose too. There are pitfalls everywhere, even in the spiritual communities, where suddenly you're judging someone because of something, and then, but this bigger thing that I want to talk about was this. Let's say that you found your life's purpose, and then you just do, and you go crazy, and then you stop listening to yourself again, right? And that's a little bit of the old world. Like we really have to change the way we're doing things.
I just talked to a friend who he's like really successful. He's super keyed into his life purpose, and he was like, Guyana, but I'm so stressed out. And then I said to him, you know what? That's because, at least what I found is that's because I was using old paradigm systems in my new life.
Exactly.
And so it's even though we've moved forward, so it's just showing that even though we've moved forward and we're stepping in, we still need to evolve the rest of our systems of how we do things so that can get up into alignment with the blissful state that we're aiming for.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot of the time it's like honoring being still as valuable, because sometimes you don't actually value it. That's why you do, because doing is actually more valuable because you're actually producing results, and then that will blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But actually sitting still and maybe contemplating your beliefs, it's so valuable because you can, by doing that, you can shift things, and when you shift things internally, the external shifts. There's channelers that just sit and change things internally. Why are yogics so successful? Like gurus. How do they become gurus? They just sit and change everything inside for years and years on. And
then it comes back to the reflection of like what's inside is what's outside.
Exactly.
So the more that we can shift the internal systems into alignment with what's authentic, with what our light is, then the world actually starts to reflect this.
Yeah.
Like this is a visceral experience. It's not just like a lofty idea.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, it's hard sometimes to believe in that if you come completely from the old system, but you just have to like start to do experiments, like start to like, okay, have in my mind a red jumper or something, like red jumper, and suddenly you see red jumpers everywhere.
Yeah.
For example, like just do some experiments to start to believe in it.
Yeah, to start to get the affirmations on the outside, like get the experience so that we can really see what is working and what doesn't work. I like that because it's really true about manifesting. What maybe is kind of unknown is that what we put our attention on grows, and it could be anything. It could be like what you're saying, red jumpers. For me, it's parking spots.
Yeah.
I
great.
I have a love affair with my what I call my parking angels, because I'm just like, when I'm about a minute away from an area that I want to be in, I'm like, parking angels, and I start to like do this little song. I'm like, I want to park there, and then like within like by the time I get there, someone is actually getting their key in the car, or they're in the car, or like I just have to wait 30 seconds, and then that spot is open. And so like that's a little bit different because it's less of a actual thing. Well, it is a thing, but it's not like a red jumper thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the same with my Grand Caravan.
Oh.
I just love that van.
Yeah, you do.
It's just, I love it
What
because
do you love about it?
I can sleep in it.
Oh.
I can pack up my thing and I can just suddenly have lots of people in it. And it's just brilliant. And it's all these things that they've thought about. When I park and shut everything off, I can just switch on one little thing and there's light. You know? And I don't know, it's just...
It's the little things.
It's the little things. But then what that makes happen in my reality is I see that car everywhere.
Oh.
Suddenly there's like, I see it everywhere. Like every second I see the same car. It's crazy.
No, it's not. It's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when we start to realize this, then we start to realize that, well, what are we putting our attention on, and how is that affecting our reality? You know, so it's like, and do I need a course correction? You know, do I need to start putting my attention on other things other than worry or fear, or, you know, and these things are really sometimes important, but sometimes they're just habitual thinking.
What do you do when you're like having a feeling that's like contradiction to the joy you're feeling? What do you do then?
Emotion code.
Emotion code.
I do.
Yeah.
So emotion code is a, for those who don't know, it is a very, it's a healing modality, and it's a way of finding what's called trapped emotions. Yeah, Ken does it too.
I have it on my mobile.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so basically releasing anxiety or any types of emotions that are stuck and on recycle or repeat. So there's lots of different types of healing modalities that can really help us, and emotion code is one of them. There's also tapping, which can be a very powerful way to like tap through old emotions.
Yeah.
And I think the number one key right now is being able to witness in ourselves when we are stuck, because sometimes being stuck can feel very unconscious, and we don't realize that there's another way. Yeah. And so, do you have any like thoughts on like how to witness yourself when you're feeling stuck?
I'm trying to do that every day. Like it's all about being conscious of the unconscious. Like
it's wild, eh?
It's really wild. Yeah. And sometimes you need help. You need friends to kind of reflect things to you.
Yeah.
And then maybe you have a sense of something, but it's like this vague mist. You can't really grasp it.
Yeah.
So.
And it's like, and those are like the old paradigms. Those are like the things that we grew up with. Those are the things that, like the childhood traumas. You know, it's like we may have like a little bit of like a feeling for. Yeah. You know, and more, maybe past life stuff.
I don't even want to call them traumas, because that seems so like, oh, you're traumatized, right? But let me just give an example of me. So, for example, when I was young, I somehow learned that by doing stuff for my dad, then I got love from him. So then in my grown life, what that looks like is that I'm helping a lot, and I'm getting love from the... Right. And that's not a trauma necessarily, right? But it's just a pattern that I associate something. Right. And that's what I'm doing to get love. Because everyone, we want to get love. Yeah. And then there is like a little bit of a thing that I've discovered too, is that sometimes my dad would we would argue a little bit, right? And he would try and control me, and I wouldn't want to be controlled.
No, right? You're like anti-control.
Yeah, I don't like control. No. So I would fight.
Who does?
I would fight my dad. Like it would be yelling and screaming and whatever. Like it would just be like, and then my mom would cry, right? And I could feel my mom, and me and my mom had a really emotional connection. Well, we still have. But by observing her crying, I was just like, okay, I chose not all the time, but like eventually I chose to pipe down in order for my mom to be okay.
Mm.
And what does that do?
Right.
That's crazy for a man, because then suddenly you're kind of dependent on like the woman being okay.
Right. So it demasculates,
Well,
or it takes out the ability to look after yourself.
It just makes me care about the female in my relationships more than myself.
Right.
And that's not a healthy thing.
It's okay to care about people. I just have to say that. It's
Absolutely.
okay to care about people.
Absolutely.
But when there's a dynamic that's not healthy, then, and this is what we're talking about. So it doesn't have to be trauma, but it's like when dynamics are in place that are running our lives. Those are the things that we can go in and start to use, like tapping for, using the emotion code or whatever, modality that you have, to start shifting those old patterns so that you're freed up, know, so then you could like, just still be able to tell your truth, even if there's a ripple that goes around, the people around you, you'll probably approach them in a much healthier way,
I just want to clarify something. Of course, helping people is a good thing, right? Because people help you back, right? But sometimes if there is an unhealthy attachment to love, like I'm doing this because then I get love, then I get fulfilled.
Excellent.
That's where it gets tricky.
Thanks for getting back to that one.
Yeah.
So it's like helping a man out, like your father, so that you get love back. So when we can clear these types of things down, and
what would a healthy thing look like? It would be like my heart just going, beam, I really want to do this. Because it comes from above. It comes from your own inner being.
You get nourished by...
and you get nourished by
the universe, and you get nourished by just the feeling of doing it,
Yeah.
rather than being like, if I give this to you, then you're going to give something back.
And
to me,
sometimes it's unconscious. Like you don't even know. Many years I've been doing this without realizing it.
I think it's a prime example, because it's like, how can we bring those things to the table? How can we become more conscious of these patterns and these traits? And you're right, it is friends, sometimes it's therapists bringing things up to the table. And sometimes, if we're lucky enough, it's meditation and like just finding stillness, so that we can, maybe it's not lucky enough, but it's actually as making choices to go deeper within ourselves. So finding a place of stillness, because from that stillness we can view our thoughts a lot clearer. And so, or going, for me also, it's also like going to sacred sites, because the vibrations are so high that it gives me a chance to reflect back on like the shifts can happen, like if I'm going for a transformation, the shifts can happen, and then it helps me view my life in a whole different way, so then I can see, what has actually been sabotaging me, what are the things that have been keeping me back from. And so from this place of personal evolution, like from a place of like personal empowerment around our evolution, because we can actually make the changes that we want now. We can find that freedom. We're no longer governed by these old paradigms, by these old belief systems. We can start to consciously evolve ourselves, which is very exciting.
It is.
It is really exciting.
I had something on my mind, but I forgot about it. Let's have a drink.
Okay. Well, we're almost at the end of the show, but I thought, actually we are at the end of the show. We can't even pull a card. Is there anything that you'd like to leave people with? Anything of maybe what how you see the world, what we're evolving into?
We're evolving into more love. Right.
I like that so
That's
much.
what we're starting with. I mean, this is where we're heading into, and sometimes it can look a bit chaotic because the truth needs to come out. So if you see something chaotic, just go within and trust that everything that happens, there is a perfect unfolding of things for things to shift into more love. Like there is nothing else than love now. That's what we're going into. And we have to see the shadows to understand that they are just shadows, You know, we don't have to be afraid of them anymore.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's really fun.
Awesome. We'll have you back another time.
Yeah. Great.
How can people get in touch with you if they wanted to?
You can reach my website at kenandzen.com.
So that's KenandZen.
Yeah. Or YouTube, Ken and Zen.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Great.
kenandzen.com, you'll find everything about me, I think.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So if you're curious about him and his video production, his marketing work, then go forth and type his name in.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope this show inspires you to walk to the beat of your own drum. May the stories shared here today inspire us all to see a greater vision of what's possible for our collective future. Want to hear more of these shows? You can find this podcast, The Conscious Planet Network, on any podcast search engine, including iTunes or Podbean. Or listen live on your computer every Friday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time by Googling islandsradio.com. You can find out more about me, Guyana, at GuyanaSophia.com. That's spelled GaianaSophia.com. If you know of a special someone who would love this program, then be sure to send it along to them. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Planet Network, broadcasting to you from the Gulf Island Community Radio. See you next time.